Hey, welcome back to the channel, folks, and this is going to be the latest GotBot Goes to the Movies installment, and I'm going to be helped by this guy. No, I'm not doing a figure review, but this is a Hero Smasher Iron Man. I think he came with the Hotshot motorcycle, I think it's called. So he's going to join me, and I'm going to be joined by these two guys. This is a version of Captain America. I think he came with a shield plane, and I don't know what line this guy's from, but he's going to kind of help us along here. In case you haven't guessed, this installment is going to be the GotBot Goes to the Movie look at the latest big superhero movie, that of course being Captain America Civil War. Okay, folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to ask that you check me out, well, everywhere, and check out my first novel and my ongoing monthly series. And yeah, I'm going to talk about Captain America Civil War. And I'm going to do this one a little bit different. In my last installment in this series, I actually did two videos. I've done a spoiler-free one and a spoiler-filled one. And this time I'm going to do two in one. So probably the first 10 minutes or so I'll do a spoiler-free commentary, and after that, well, there'll be spoilers. So you've been warned. I will take a little break for those who don't want to have the spoilers. And for those who do, well, wonderful. Like I said, I'm hoping to go about 10 minutes with the spoiler-free. So let's get into it. And in the meantime, I'm probably going to play around with these guys a little bit while I talk. What did I think of this movie? There's a lot here. The very first thing I'd like to say is I think it was an excellent idea to have movies like Iron Man first and the Captain America movies first and all the other superhero movies first, that established certain actors and certain characters in those roles, because you could understand who was who better in this film. And there's a lot of people in this film. It is a large cast, but it's generally cast quite well and done quite well, I have to say. And you start out really with some big action. You're not sure how it kind of ties into stuff, and then you go into a relatively large kind of fight scene, and you get to see a lot of the heroes in their glory, which is nice, and the story kind of picks up after that. I had figured, with the wealth of characters that are in this film, that we were probably going to have it be more like an Avengers movie than anything else, but at its core it is very much a Captain America movie, and the main story really does focus focus in such a way that you would say, yeah, it's a Captain America movie with these, I won't say cameos because it's more than cameos, but with these additions of other characters. And I don't think you're going to feel like, well, if I'm a Captain America fan, I was robbed on this being a Captain America movie. Definitely not. It was very good in that in that department. A couple of surprises along the way, and a couple of points where I thought that we were going to have loopholes, but they end up working themselves out as the movie goes on. A couple of things that, if they weren't addressed right, it would have really hurt this movie, but luckily they get addressed right, and that really helps things. Okay, the good. There's plenty of action. It is exactly what you would expect from a movie of this sort, and you're not going to be disappointed with the action sequences. It's they're big. They're big, and the special effects are great. The casting mostly is really good. In the trailers, we have seen a snippet where Spider-Man shows up, and I don't think that's a spoiler for anyone because it's been in the trailers. Um, I love Spider-Man. My absolute favorite, Marvel character, and I'm very about the casting. I like the suit and stuff, but about the casting. Um, on the good side, the story is done very well, and it asks some important questions of, who's above the law. Um, are these heroes answerable for their actions? It relates back to points in earlier movies. If you didn't see them, if you haven't, kind of followed the Marvel universe, I don't think that you're going to be missing out on too much here. But um, it would obviously help. But yeah, it asks some important questions about being accountable for your actions. Which, if you watch my other GotBot Goes to the Movies, you'll notice that the questions asked are somewhat similar. To be honest with you, and I think that's very interesting. Seeing two, you know, traditionally comic book universes expand onto the big screen, and seeing these sort of similarities and how they're being approached in different ways. Um, there are times that I felt like, okay, there's a little bit too much banter and talk here, but it's broken up really well with a lot of engaging action sequences, and even those characters that are more minor characters in this movie don't get lost. They all get, some good lines, and at least one good fight scene, which is great because it helps you to be invested in the characters a little bit more. Um, and personally, I like that. You very much, as you go through, have to decide: are you on Team Cap, or are you on Team Iron Man? And the heroes have to make that decision, and really, you as a moviegoer have to make that decision. The bad. Um, One plot point seemed a little odd when it happened. And if you don't take a second, when the twist comes, and there is a twist, and when that comes, near the end, um, if you don't really kind of pay attention and go back and say to yourself, oh yeah, now it makes sense why that happened, you might walk out having a question, but it is explained. You just have to pay attention to the twist and the explanation during the twist. It is 2.5 hours or so, but I didn't feel like I was getting tired. I didn't feel like, the movie was supposed to end and then we went on with something else. The movie was supposed to end and we went on with something else. It all seemed like it kind of had to be involved and happen the way that it did. Everything had to be included the way that it did. I was very skeptical. Knowing the story in the comics for Civil War, I was really skeptical about the movie, and I've been saying all along, I'm not really excited. I already know how the story goes. Certainly some changes to that. Enough that it makes the movie enjoyable. Um, and I don't think that, even if you know the story from the comics, I don't think that you're going to be disappointed with this movie um, at all. It was a blast and a half. By the way, you'll notice I'm playing with these guys. It's just so there's something for you guys to see on screen while I talk here. I was surprised that certain characters were more major and had bigger roles than I really thought that they were going to have, and I thought that was great. And a couple of characters had more minor roles than I thought they were going to have, but it still worked fine. I really didn't. It really didn't bother me, and I didn't notice it too much. To be perfectly honest with you, I was also concerned that this might not truly be a civil war. But again, it really is. The way that it works out, the bad guy, the antagonist in the film, is there and has a logic and a reason, but doesn't overtake the film so that the idea that this is a civil war between two opposing sides of heroes gets lost. At its heart, it's a Captain America movie, but at its heart, it's also a Civil War movie for these heroes. And I think in the end, you're not really left so much with questions as you are with the idea that it'll be interesting to see where they go with the movies from here. Um, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to spoil anything right here, but I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I don't think you're going to believe that there's points where this lags, and I don't think you're going to be left with a lot of plot holes. Is there ugly? No, not really. There's not really anything ugly in this film. It's just a fun time at the movies. Starscream Girlfriend loved it. She thoroughly enjoyed it. And I've had a little bit of time now to review my thoughts on it when I initially came out. When I initially came out, I was thinking, I feel like I wanted a bit more. Like the fight sequences are great and they're big, but I almost felt like I wanted something extraordinary to happen. I mean, in Avengers: Age of Ultron, I mean, we see, a nation lifted into the air. In the earlier Avengers movie, we've seen, that huge shield floating base, crash into the water. And I was waiting for something enormous like that. And I don't know if we actually got it. Not that I can remember. So when I first came out, I said it was really good, great story, but I never felt like I had that ooh baby moment. Now that I've had time to reflect on it, I'm going to give this movie a 8.5, maybe even a 9. It was really good. The only thing that keeps it from being a 10 for me is that lack that sticks in my mind of that one huge boom moment. Anyway, if you get a chance to see Captain America: Civil War, hey, watch it, enjoy it, and decide for yourself. Are you on Team Cap or are you on Team Iron Man? Anyway, that's going to tie it up for the spoiler-free section of the review. I'm going to take just a very brief pause. If you are leaving us now, thanks for watching, and I will see you the next time we have a visit inside the videos. And if you're going to stick with us to see a little more detail, well, great. Stick around, and I will be back in just a second. Okay, so we are back, and for those who, fast forwarded to this section, hey, welcome, thanks for joining us, and, check me out everywhere, and we're going to have a look at Captain America: Civil War, and for those of you who are sticking around after watching the spoiler-free part, well, we're going to get into a few things here and a few spoilers along the way in my thoughts, and if you are wondering why all these guys are here, hey, they're just going to kind of help me out a little bit. The movie opens with this, sequence of the Winter Soldier being given this list of words and numbers that seem to affect him, and you're wondering why. And then he's given a mission. In retrospect, I think that's like an activate code for Winter Soldier. And he goes to do this mission, and he murders a couple of people and steals something from the trunk. It's a weird start. It happens in 1991, and you're like, how can that tie in with anything? And we move from there to this big action sequence where the heroes, who are still united at this point, fight Crossbones. And okay, here's point number one. Not a huge fan of the casting of Crossbones. I didn't really like the voice. The character was okay. I won't even say I didn't like the voice. It just, I don't know. I think I expected Crossbone's voice to be a little more burly and surly. Um, and it was a little more refined or something than I would have thought. But it's a great sequence, and again, you're wondering like, why is this happening? But it comes together again a little bit later. This movie heavily ties into Avengers: Age of Ultron, where the whole notion of Ultron lifting up Sokovia, I think was the name of the nation, and having a lot of people become casualties in the process is addressed, and how the Avengers, are totally unanswerable for this in the eyes of the world, and they don't even know where Thor and Banner are now. And a question comes up of how above the law can these heroes be? And of course, you have Cap, who says, like, we have to be able to be autonomous. We have to be able to choose where to be and when to be there, because we're dealing with these, these villains who aren't always predictable and can't always be controlled by traditional means. And we can't wait for, all of this approval and whatnot. And you have Iron Man, well, Tony actually, who was approached by someone who lost her son in Sokovia, and he starts to feel guilty and feels like, yeah, he's to blame, and the Avengers are to blame, and maybe we should be answerable because we need to avert tragedies like that. And you kind of get a bunch of heroes then start to make appearances, and they decide whose whose side they're on. In the meantime, this is very much a Captain America movie where Winter Soldier is basically activated again, and there's a bombing, and Winter Soldier gets blamed for the bombing, and he keeps saying that he didn't do it, and the hunt is out for Winter Soldier. And because Bucky, was a friend of Cap's, Cap feels like, no, I have to bring him in. I have to save him, make sure that he's not taken out by anybody else, and he feels very personally motivated, and he goes to try and ask Bucky, like, why would you do this? And lo and behold, Captain America and those that support him kind of become seen as outlaws. I found it very difficult, and I wavered between if I was on Team Iron Man, because I could see the points that Tony and company were making, or Team Cap, because I could see the points that they were making as well. That being said, while this is very much a story that links Cap and Winter Soldier, and it's kind of a great mystery, if Winter Soldier didn't do this, then who did? Or if Winter Soldier did do this, why don't he remember it? And that progresses as we go through, and we see that there is a villain and he has a certain motivation, but he is subdued enough that he doesn't take over the movie, doesn't take over the screen. And I like that, because this is very much a movie that ends up being a civil war led by these two. And the heroes do a lot of fighting each other, to be honest, and that's kind of what I was looking for in a Civil War movie. The name says it right there. So many surprises in here in terms of characters that show up, and just how big of a role they had. Vision and Scarlet Witch had big roles, and I like Vision. I thought that the casting was great. And they have big roles, to my surprise. Tony, Iron Man's role, a bit smaller than I would have expected, but effective when he's on screen. We saw Ant-Man, who actually had a big role, pardon the pun, and I'm not going to give that one away. Go see the movie and you'll see what I mean when I say big role. We saw Falcon and War Machine, both big roles, really. We saw Spider-Man, and I thought that we were just going to get and by the way, I think this might be a fast food drive-through toy. But he does this. That's pretty cool, hey? Um, I thought that we were going to see him for a minute. He was going to take Cap's shield like we saw in the trailer and say, "Hey, Cap, big fan," and that was going to be it. But no, we get some Peter Parker, and we get some Spider-Man, and there's actually a good fight sequence with Spider-Man and Winter Soldier and War Machine, maybe? I can't remember. I loved seeing it. I think the casting for Spider-Man is good. I don't like the actor as Peter Parker. I did not like, I believe it was Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. She's too young. I couldn't buy it. I don't like Aunt May. I don't like Peter. Spider-Man, yeah, Spider-Man was cast well, I have to say. And the trick is with these movies, you need someone that can play the alter ego well, and you need someone that can play the hero well. And sadly for Spider-Man, I didn't get that feeling. Even when Tony visited Peter, I didn't get that feeling. I just kind of didn't buy it. Whatever. I think we're eventually probably going to get the Iron Spider suit, possibly. But again, it was great to see that. Clint Hawkeye shows up, and again, he has a pretty good role and good lines, and even at one point when he's imprisoned, he has a somewhat sort of impassioned kind of speech that was really quite significant, I think, to Iron Man, to Tony. At least, in part. So the good is the casting is great, the story keeps going along, and a few points it feels like, okay, they're doing a little too much talking, but it's broken up quickly with a lot of action sequences. You come into this after 2.5 hours and you don't feel like, hey, I was in there too long. I would suggest to you stick around during the credits, of course, for the extra scene. Stay right till the very end, because there's a second extra scene that might set up what their next movie is, possibly. Like I said, the story goes on. There's a couple of points that I thought could have been plot holes, like the slaying in the beginning. It could have been, but of course that's explained toward the end in a twist when you find out that Winter Soldier was responsible for killing Tony's parents. And the truth is, you learn that Winter Soldier is kind of an alter ego of Bucky. And I think that was very significant, because you kind of feel a certain sense of sympathy for Bucky, because you say he's not always responsible for his actions. But of course that motivates Tony to kind of go haywire for a little bit and have a huge fight with Cap, a huge climactic fight. And it's a very effective fight. It's a really, really good fight sequence. And the other big twist, and what could have potentially been a plot hole, is a phone call is made by the villain, and he, says, "Oh, you have to go to room such and such in this hotel," and you get there and you realize that, someone has been slain, and you would say, why would this guy kind of rat himself out? Because all of that had to go to Captain America, or had to go to Iron Man, so that Iron Man would end up, going to this location in Siberia, I think. Captain America and Winter Soldier were already on their way there because of other information, and the villain explains that he wanted both of them there so that they would destroy each other. There's enough of a villain, there's enough of a reasoning behind what he's doing to pull them together. But instead of really being in the battle and the conflict himself, it sticks to being a civil war. Beautifully written. I thought that I wasn't going to be into this movie because I knew the story from the comics, but you know what? No, I really was. And when I first walked out, I didn't feel like I had that huge, like, oh man moment with, some great big explosion, or, something huge happening, like the nation of Sokovia being lifted up during Avengers Age of Ultron. But now that I've had time to reflect on it, yeah, this was a really good movie, a really good installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I can't wait to see what they do next. To be honest with you, it certainly asks questions about these heroes being accountable for their actions or being able to just do what they want without any consequences. And I think that those are kind of important questions to ask, because we see these heroes and we don't really think about the effects that they have on other people and things in the everyday. Starscream Girlfriend loved it, enjoyed it immensely, more than me initially. Coming out now and having a couple of days to think about it, yeah, this movie was an 8.5 or 9. The only reason I don't give it a 10 is because I was waiting for that one big boom moment. Anyway, a lot of spoilers there. Still, despite that, go see the movie, because for everything I've said and the spoilers that I've given, you are not going to be disappointed. You are going to enjoy this. Oh, and by the way, I've heard mixed reviews on Black Panther. I thought that the introduction of Black Panther was excellent. I thought that, him showing up, nobody knowing who he was, and then the revelation of, who Black Panther was, worked tremendously well. And that was probably your biggest aha moment of like, oh yeah, wow, okay. Even though it's a very simple reveal. And I liked the movements, I liked the characterization. I thought that it was done really, really well. Anyway, there you go. My thoughts, non-spoiler, my thoughts, spoiler. I would check it out if I were you. It's a fun time at the movies. And I guess I'll tie it up there. Call it good for this one, and I'll thank you for watching, and I will see you the next time that we have a visit right here inside the videos.